On May the 21st of 2023, 20-year-old New Jersey woman KARINA Armando was arrested for DWI, reckless driving, and several other motor vehicle violations. Shortly after 6 p.m., patrolman Robert Alvator from the Highlands Police Department observed the Dodge Caliber driving erratically on State Route 36. Alvator reportedly followed the car and noticed it swerving and tailgating before eventually stopping the vehicle. He found KARINA Armando behind the wheel with 24-year-old Olivia Morrow in the passenger seat. Alvator asked for the driving license and car papers, which the women handed over while Armando apologized, saying that being pulled over was an uncommon experience for her. As Alvator was checking their documents, he noticed that the women were behaving strangely. Moments later, the two women admitted they came from a beachfront bar called Donovan's Reef in Seabright, where they'd consumed alcohol. Armando was subjected to several field sobriety tests, smiling and laughing throughout. During the one-leg stand exam, she failed to maintain balance. During the alphabet test, she slurred the letters. Her counting was also inconsistent during the finger dexterity test. Meanwhile, Morrow became uncooperative and downright annoying, attempting to exit the vehicle multiple times despite being told not to. Morrow frantically looked for her ID, forgetting that she had just given it to the officer. She left the scene later after being allowed to be picked up by her boyfriend. In the end, Armando was taken to the police station where she refused the breathalyzer test. She invoked her Miranda rights and didn't answer arrest-related questions. She was later released to Morrow's boyfriend as well after he signed a liability warning. 6 weeks later, Armando was arrested again for DWI. That arrest video went semi-viral because she was accused by some of trying to flirt her way out of that arrest. Number 9. Samantha Granado. An Illinois woman who was arrested in Crystal Lake on the evening of May the 8th of 2022 raised both of her middle fingers at officers in the police station. The arrest stemmed from a car ride that evening during which Samantha Granado reportedly had a heated argument with her best friend. The 30-year-old allegedly spat on her friend and struck her with a mobile phone. According to court documents, Crystal Lake police were called and responded shortly before 11 p.m. When an officer arrived at the scene near the intersection of Route 31 and Route 14, Granado gave the car keys to the officer and informed him that her friend was severely intoxicated. The officer returned the car keys to the driver, believing that she wasn't at fault. The driver was then allowed to go, but Granado was detained due to her involvement in the altercation. The officer told the woman that the only one who was intoxicated was her. She began shouting and arguing with the officer, refusing to follow any of his instructions. As the officer placed her in the police car, Granado continued her belligerence and threatened to sue the officer. She also told the officer that he was in trouble, claiming she had connections with the sheriff. As her behavior escalated, more officers arrived at the scene and assisted in her arrest. According to a criminal complaint, Granado caused bodily harm to an officer while resisting arrest. Apparently, she dug her nail into his hand, causing a red mark and indentation. The complaint further stated that she kicked another officer in the right leg, causing a red mark. From the scene all the way to the Crystal Lake Police Department, she continued berating the police. Granado was ultimately charged with battery and 2 counts of resisting a peace officer, causing injury. A judge ordered her to be held in the McHenry County Jail on a $31,000 bond. Number 8. Sequoia Dunkinsell. On the evening of July the 25th of 2023, a naked woman was arrested after she reportedly fired shots on I-80 near the Bay Bridge Toll Plaza in Oakland, California. According to California Highway Patrol, someone called 911 shortly before 5 p.m. stating a reckless driver was brandishing a gun. The woman had also stopped her car and had gotten out to yell at drivers while holding a knife. She then drove off again and stopped once more, again getting out of the vehicle, but this time she was naked and holding a gun. She subsequently opened fire multiple times. When officers arrived, she dropped the gun and was taken into custody for medical evaluations. Apparently, the incident briefly shut down all eastbound lanes of I-80 near the toll plaza, and no injuries were reported. The suspect was identified as 32-year-old Sequoia Dunkinsell from Sacramento. Dunkinsell was facing several charges, including shooting at an occupied vehicle, making criminal threats, assault with a semi-automatic firearm, and reckless driving, among others. As of the latest updates, she pleaded not guilty during her arraignment on August the 1st of 2023. Number 7. Taylor Taranto. When 37-year-old Taylor Taranto was arrested on June the 29th of 2023, he had 2 guns and 400 rounds of ammunition with him. According to NBC News, Taranto was a rioter during the US Capitol attack on January the 6th of 2021. He was positively identified in August of 2021 after a facial recognition search of images at the Capitol showed photos of him posing with a cardboard cutout of former President Donald Trump. Prosecutors said that he was arrested after he showed up in the Colorama neighborhood of Washington, D.C. on the same day that former President Donald Trump posted on his social media platform what he claimed was Obama's home address. Taranto was facing 4 misdemeanor charges in connection with the Capitol attack, but the prosecutors stated that more charges could be on the way. The prosecutors detailed a litany of alleged examples of Taranto's erratic behavior before his arrest, including making threatening statements about House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and claims on his YouTube livestream that he intended to blow up the National Institute of Standards and Technology in suburban Maryland. During a detention hearing on July the 5th of 2023, Taranto's lawyer told the judge that the defendant was a Navy veteran who'd experienced significant trauma from serving in Iraq. However, the judge agreed with federal prosecutors that Taranto represented a danger to the community. If he was released, he was ordered to remain in jail while awaiting trial. Number 6. Edward C. Saman. The Naperville Police Department in Illinois released footage that showed a man attacking an officer with a hatchet on June the 3rd of 2022. At approximately 11 a.m., Officer Frank Tonkovich reportedly pulled over a black Honda Civic for ignoring a stop sign at eastbound McDowell Road and Bond Street. Tonkovich, who was driving a marked Naperville Police Squad car, positioned his vehicle behind the Honda and conducted a traffic stop. The footage revealed that at approximately 11:11 a.m., while Tonkovich was speaking with the driver, a silver Ford Fusion stopped in the middle of the road within a few feet from the officer. A man exited the Ford with a hatchet. According to Tonkovich, the man, later identified as 28-year-old Edward C. Saman, had a crazed look in his eyes. Tonkovich then asked him, "Who are you?" Before Saman suddenly charged at the officer, Tonkovich quickly drew his firearm and fired 6 shots, hitting the man 5 times. Saman was transported to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead. After a thorough and extensive investigation, the DuPage County State's Attorney Robert Berlin said that the shooting had been justified. Berlin added that the officer reasonably believed that Saman was trying to kill him or the subject of the traffic stop. He further stated that Tonkovich's actions were not just reasonable but necessary in order to prevent great bodily harm or death to himself or the motorist he had stopped. It never became clear what Saman's motive was. Will County court records indicated that Saman was previously charged with aggravated battery to a peace officer, aggravated battery to a victim 60 or older, and 2 misdemeanor counts of domestic battery. He'd also been ordered to stay away from his family. Number 5. Stripping at the Miami International Airport. On January the 13th of 2020, a woman wandered around a terminal before stripping down to her bra and panties in Florida's Miami International Airport. The 27-year-old was first spotted strolling past baggage claim, singing aloud while removing her navy blue bra and underwear. The Miami Herald reported the incident was caught on video, showing the woman strolling past several shocked onlookers. She was totally nude by the end of the viral video. Responding police located the naked woman at the Central Plaza parking garage exit, reportedly behaving erratically. She somehow managed to climb on top of a patrol car as it left the airport. She then leaped off the vehicle and ran through moving traffic towards another police officer standing nearby. Airport police said that the woman, who wasn't a local resident, was then taken into custody and transported to a nearby facility for mental evaluation. According to officials, it was unlikely any criminal charges would be filed because the woman appeared to be mentally ill. Number 4. Antonio DEMAR Murdoch. A man allegedly chased after a police officer's unit into the gated back lot of the Hot Springs Police Department in Arkansas. According to a probable cause affidavit, Sergeant Kirk Zahner pulled into the back entrance gate of the police department, located on Malvern Avenue shortly before 4:30 a.m. on September the 26th of 2020. Another vehicle subsequently pulled up behind Zahner's unit. As Zahner started to pull forward into the lot, a man reportedly jumped out of the car and started running toward the rear of Zahner's unit. Two officers nearby yelled at Zahner, warning him about the approaching suspect, who continued to run at full speed as if he was attempting to attack the officer. Zahner heard the warning and sped forward to distance himself from the man. The other two officers drew their pistols and ordered the man to stop. After making it halfway through the gated back lot, the man, later identified as 31-year-old Antonio DEMAR Murdoch, complied and put his hands in the air before getting on the ground. Officers said that Murdoch was speaking very erratically and claimed that someone in his car was trying to kill him. At that point, the officers detained Murdoch, checked his vehicle, and discovered there was no one inside it. Murdoch then told them that the person was inside his engine bay. The officers noted that it was quickly determined that Murdoch was delusional. They later found 15 various-sized containers of marijuana that totaled nearly 5 ounces. Murdoch admitted the substance was his and that he was unable to provide a medical marijuana card. He was then taken into custody shortly before 5 a.m. and charged with a felony count of possession of marijuana and a misdemeanor count of criminal trespass. Murdoch, who listed both Texas and Malvern addresses, was later released on a $3,000 bond. The Sentinel Record reported that the same man later drew international media attention on December the 21st of 2020 when he was arrested for forcibly opening an emergency door on a plane waiting to take off from New York's LaGuardia Airport. He and another individual were taken into custody on charges of criminal mischief and trespassing, among others. He told police that he had post-traumatic stress disorder that was purportedly triggered by the confined space in the airplane cabin. He was released without bail at an arraignment the following day. In April of 2021, Murdoch pleaded guilty to the charges from the incident. In September, he was sentenced to 4 years probation, fined $500 in order to pay $565 in court costs. It was unclear if he was also punished for the incident in the plane. Number 3. Mohammed Khan. 28-year-old Mohammed Khan from London, England, allegedly tried to lift the flag off the Queen's coffin in Westminster Hall on September the 16th of 2022 because he didn't believe she was dead. Khan broke from the queue, stepped off the carpet in the direction of the catafalque, and grabbed hold of the royal standard draped over the coffin. Subsequently, he was tackled by police officers. According to BBC News, Khan told one officer he wanted to see if the Queen was really dead. He was then removed from the scene and arrested. He was charged with using threatening, abusive, insulting words or behavior to cause harassment, alarm, or distress with intent. Khan was later assessed by psychiatrists as not fit to take part in legal proceedings. Judge Louisa Chiacchiora said she was satisfied that Khan was suffering from a mental disorder and should be detained in hospital care where he could be given appropriate treatment. She told him that he'd be taken to the Tower Hamlets Center for Mental Health. She added that the length of his stay in the mental health facility would depend on his treatment and doctor's advice. Today's topic was requested by Brooke Essence and 9TerraFox 777. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Kenneth Cardiff. On the morning of November the 11th of 2021, Englishman Kenneth Cardiff reportedly killed 39-year-old John Flores because he was convinced people were trying to murder him. Cardiff had been living with Flores at the latter's apartment on Cartwright Street, near central London. Law enforcement responded to the building shortly after 6:40 a.m. after receiving a report from a resident who heard people yelling and throwing things around in Flores's unit. The London Free Press reported that officers immediately saw a lot of blood and a lot of scattered objects around the unit. They then went to the bathroom where they found Flores covered in blood with no vital signs. Meanwhile, a woman who lived in a nearby building called authorities and reported a man covered in blood who had followed her into the building. Responding officers found the man in the laundry room and identified him as Cardiff. He was arrested for trespassing and told he was being detained as a murder suspect after paramedics had confirmed Flores was dead. At police headquarters several hours later, Cardiff admitted he'd been with Flores at the apartment and that he'd been upset because his bank card was missing. He added that he began assaulting Flores and strangled him in the kitchen before dragging his body to the bathroom, where he struck him with a machete. Along with his confession, he also stated that he'd thought clowns, unicorns, and children were chasing him. He claimed that he'd been in a psychosis for over a year. Cardiff pleaded guilty to manslaughter on April the 4th of 2023. Cardiff's defense lawyer said Cardiff was remorseful, and his remorse and acceptance of responsibility were due to the fact that he accepted the plea. The defendant's long-standing mental health issues would have made it a challenge for the Crown to prove intent and murder if the case had gone to trial. Court records indicated that the judge in Cardiff's case agreed to a joint submission from the prosecutor and the defense lawyer to accept the plea and sentenced him to 8 years in prison with credit for time served. Stay tuned after number 1 if you've yet to see our video on when binging goes wrong. Number 1. Jamshid Piroz. In Crawley, England, 34-year-old Jamshid Piroz attacked Sussex police officers with a hammer, leaving one officer in need of hospital treatment. Piroz, a native of Afghanistan, lived and had reportedly served time in the Netherlands. He somehow had been allowed into the UK despite being a convicted murderer. According to court records, Piroz arrived in Britain in December of 2015 to visit relatives but missed his return flight from Gatwick Airport on January the 4th of 2016, after which he set off on a crime spree. He was arrested and prosecuted for assault after he spat at a member of EasyJet staff who told him he would need to buy a new ticket. During Piroz's court appearance, he was ordered to pay compensation. Consequently, he went on to burgle some garages in Crawley, making off with some tools, including a hammer. On January the 7th, a witness saw Piroz attempting another break-in and called authorities. Dramatic police body cam footage showed Piroz being cornered by responding officers in a tool shed before he lashed out with a claw hammer. The officers tried to subdue him by discharging 2 tasers, which were not effective. Piroz subsequently launched a second attack on police constable Jessica Chick. Chick's route was blocked as she tried to retreat. Piroz allegedly attempted to hit her with his hammer, but she blocked the hammer with her baton. Piroz turned his attention to another officer. PC Stuart Young was struck by the hammer on the neck and shoulder before his colleagues managed to restrain Piroz. Piroz was charged with burglary, affray, and 2 counts of attempted grievous bodily harm with intent. He later pleaded guilty to the charges. Judge Jeremy Gold jailed Piroz for life in January of 2017. Gold told the convict that there was no reason for him to carry out the terrifying, violent attack. The judge also noted that Piroz was potentially quite dangerous, having suffered from acute psychotic episodes. Piroz was given 2 life sentences for the attempted grievous bodily harm offences to run concurrently, for which he will serve a minimum of 5 years as well as 9 months for affray and 6 months for burglary. However, at an appeal hearing, his sentence was reduced to 3 years. The Sussex Police Federation called this deduction of his sentence highly frustrating. Number 7. KAYLA Mendoza. On the night of November the 16th of 2013, Florida woman KAYLA Mendoza accompanied some of her co-workers from her job at a T-Mobile US store to the Tijuana Taxi Co., a local bar in Coral Springs. According to subsequent reports, the 20-year-old woman drank 2 fishbowl margaritas, over the course of the next several hours. At some point during the evening, Mendoza made a post to her Twitter account in which she had stated, "Too drunk to care." It was later detailed how she regularly posted similar quotes to her social media profiles that suggested she suffered from an addiction to alcohol as well as other substances. Although the drinks she'd consumed at the bar had left her severely intoxicated, Mendoza got behind the wheel of her then-boyfriend's Hyundai Sonata in order to drive home a few hours later. The young woman then traveled down the Sawgrass Expressway in the wrong direction and at speeds of up to 80 miles per hour before colliding with a 2012 Toyota Camry occupied by Caitlin Ferranti and Marissa Catronio, both aged 21. The violent crash, which occurred at about 1:45 a.m., instantly killed Catronio, while Ferranti passed away in the hospital a few days later. Mendoza broke both her legs in the collision and was consequently confined to a wheelchair for over a year. She was arrested and charged with several offenses, including 2 counts of DUI manslaughter while impaired. In 2015, Mendoza pleaded guilty to her charges and shortly thereafter was sentenced to 24 years in federal prison. She was ordered to serve 6 years of probation following her release and was also permanently banned from operating a motor vehicle. Number 6. Davis Allen Kripe. In April of 2017, South Carolina teenager Davis Allen Kripe collapsed during one of his classes at Spring Hill High School. Paramedics were dispatched to the scene and Kripe was taken to the hospital where he was later pronounced dead after having suffered a cardiac event causing a probable arrhythmia. It subsequently emerged that Kripe had consumed several highly caffeinated beverages in the hours leading up to the incident. According to the Richland County coroner, the teen had drunk a latte from McDonald's, a large Mountain Dew, and an unidentified energy drink within a 2-hour time frame. Although Kripe was described as healthy and reportedly exhibited no signs of a pre-existing heart condition, the excessive amount of caffeine in his system, ingested over such a short period of time, ultimately triggered his fatal cardiac episode. In subsequent reports, it was detailed how the 200-pound teen had consumed approximately 470 milligrams of caffeine on the day in question. In 2015, the European Food Safety Authority stated that drinking more than 400 milligrams during a 24-hour period could lead to increased heart rate, higher blood pressure, irregular heartbeat, tremors, nervousness, insomnia, and panic attacks. Number 5. Ryan Austin Martin. Florida police were called to the Orlando International Airport on February the 24th of 2022 after receiving reports of a belligerent flyer in the midst of what was described as a chaotic meltdown. When officers arrived at the scene, they came upon New York resident Ryan Austin Martin, who was traveling with his wife and daughter. According to eyewitness testimony, 34-year-old Martin had gotten into a physical altercation with his family and ultimately needed to be separated from them by airport security. He also allegedly attacked an airline employee during the course of his public outburst. The incident, which was captured on cell phone video by witnesses at the scene, culminated with Martin being tasered a total of 7 times by the police. Despite law enforcement's efforts to subdue him, the heavy-set man continued behaving aggressively. Additional officers eventually got to the airport, at which point Martin was detained and taken to Orange County Jail. He reportedly faced charges of child abuse, battery involving domestic violence, resisting an officer with violence, and disorderly intoxication. In the wake of the incident, it emerged that Martin had consumed several alcoholic beverages leading up to his meltdown, which investigators identified as a contributing factor to his unrelentingly aggressive behavior. Number 4. Jennifer Strange. California radio station KDND sponsored an on-air water drinking contest, for which the prize was a Nintendo Wii video game console. On January the 12th of 2007, the challenge's participants competed to see which of them could consume the most water without urinating. One of the contestants, a mother of 3 from Sacramento named Jennifer Strange, drank approximately 1.5 gallons of water during the competition. Later on, the 28-year-old woman reportedly told the radio hosts that she was suffering from an intense headache The DJs reacted by laughing at her, however, and even told the woman that her distended stomach, another side effect of the excessive water intake, made her look pregnant. After finishing in second place for the contest, Strange left the station and called one of her supervisors at the Radiological Associates of Sacramento to say that she wasn't feeling well and was going home for the day. Hours later, the woman was found dead after having suffered hyponatremia, which occurs when the concentration of sodium in one's blood is abnormally low. Strange's family subsequently filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the radio station, which fired 10 of its employees in the incident's wake. During the lawsuit's court proceedings, a kidney expert testified that by drinking too much water, Strange had disrupted her body's salt balance, causing her cells as well as her brain to swell. The jury ultimately awarded a $16.5 million payout to the woman's family. Number 3. GEMMA PAYNE. 24-year-old English woman GEMMA PAYNE was arrested in the afternoon of September the 26th of 2019 after a police officer had witnessed her punch a man while intoxicated. The incident occurred only hours after Payne had been released from the custody of West Midlands Police in connection to what was described as a similar offence. In September of the following year, the young woman was arrested for drunkenly assaulting a police constable who was acting in the exercise of her duties as an emergency worker. In March of 2021, it was reported that Payne was involved in a domestic violence incident. Court records indicated that she'd flown into a fit of rage after her girlfriend had refused the inebriated woman access to her home. Payne then forced her way inside and threw a pair of shoes at the victim before repeatedly striking her in the head. During her trial, Payne reportedly told the court that she had no recollection of the attack due to her having been acutely intoxicated at the time. Her overindulgence in alcohol had led to more than 10 criminal convictions for instances in which she was drunk and disorderly. Number 2. The black licorice overdose. In September of 2020, a case study was published in the New England Journal of Medicine that centered on the story of a man who died by eating too much black licorice. The medical report only identified the individual as a 54-year-old construction worker from Massachusetts. He had developed a habit of consuming 2 large bags of the black-colored confection every day for 3 weeks back in January of 2019. The excessive amount of licorice, which naturally contains a toxin called glyceric acid, reportedly caused the man's potassium levels to plummet. While he was eating at a fast food restaurant, he abruptly went into cardiac arrest and lost consciousness. Paramedics arrived at the scene within minutes and managed to revive him using 4 electric shocks and CPR. Approximately 30 minutes later, the man was admitted to a local hospital. Medical staff subsequently determined that he'd suffered from multiple organ system failure, profound metabolic derangements, dangerously low levels of potassium in his blood, and cardiac arrest associated with ventricular fibrillation. It was ultimately concluded that each of his medical complications had stemmed from his extreme overindulgence of black licorice. Despite the best efforts of his doctors, the man passed away about 32 hours after his initial hospital admittance. Number 1. Artie Lang. Comedian Artie Lang, best known for his tenure on the famed Howard Stern-led radio show, made headlines in May of 2019 after he was arrested for an alleged probation violation. Officers from the Essex County Sheriff's Office in New Jersey had taken the former television personality into custody at a halfway house in Clinton on the morning of May the 21st. Although Lang reportedly looked sober and appeared to be coherent when interacting with law enforcement, he was ultimately deemed to not be in compliance with his drug rehabilitation program. Subsequent reports detailed how traces of both cocaine and morphine had been detected in his system, which was a clear violation of the probation associated with his 2017 drug possession conviction. The attention generated by Lang's latest run-in with the law was partially attributed to his deformed appearance in his mugshot, which went viral online. In it, the man exhibited obvious signs of saddle nose, a deformity caused by trauma to the septum. The condition is reportedly common among drug abusers who've repeatedly overindulged in substances ingested through the nose. Beverly Hills plastic surgeon Paul Nassif, who rose to prominence by co-hosting the reality series Botched with Terry Dubrow publicly stated that he'd be willing to mend Lang's nose if he was committed to permanently refrain from abusing illegal substances. Thanks for watching. Would you rather live the rest of your life drunk or spend the next 5 years of it